Well, you can tell everybody. Yeah, you can tell everybody. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to your favorite show, the one show that turns your Wednesday nights into an action-packed evening. And that is Men. Now we're here at the Skies Naguru Hotel, the place that has the best view, arguably the best view in Kampala. I'd like to think so. But we've got Father's Day coming up, so we're going to specifically talk about fathers. But not just talking about fathers, we are going to talk about redefining manhood. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
With a beautiful sunset, about the best in the
Beautiful
world.
African
Ugandan. You're those
it's a
people
$1 million view.
who would call, anyway, you know. No, I'm already charged because of our pre-show discussion. Now, I would have wanted to start with Colin or Stefan, but they're already saying a lot of things. So I think, Chris, it would be good for you to set the pace. Now, before we went on, we were just talking about how manhood is changing. We're evolving. I mean, as human beings, we evolve. We are not the same as we were even just yesterday. But should we go with what Stephen is saying, that we need to go back to what we originally were? Or should we continue evolving the way we're going?
I think that there is a difference between the principle and the circumstance. As in, like, you can run by principles, but you sort of round the edges based on the circumstance you're in, but you still stay anchored in principle. So I think in principle, a man is a man, provider, protector, leader in family, and I know that yes, there's women who are leading in society. There's lady presidents and prime ministers and stuff like that, and that's okay, and that's important as well. We're raising daughters to be leaders as well, but I think that the role of leadership that men play, especially at the family level, needs to be held firmly. It needs to happen so that society doesn't crumble, because the family is the basic building block of any society. So if men are not leading there, if they're not playing their roles well there, then the society crumbles. And then so the things that then we see on the street, in the office, in the nation, at national level, whatever, is all coming from the presence or absence of men, whether men are playing their fathering role or not. I wrote a book about that, about in fathering, and I really strongly believe that men have a key role to play. Yeah. But we need to. I don't think that the caveman man is still the same.
We're not calling him Stevens, man.
No, I didn't say that. But really, I don't think that role looks the same, but the principles stay the same.
Stephen,
yes,
good to have you here.
Thank you.
I can see you already.
Oh yeah, I'm charged, ready to go full throat.
Now, do our men need saving, especially if I may now bring it home to fathers? Because Chris has mentioned, I mean, there's been an absence of fathers. Maybe we are just simply looking for excuses and blaming our issues on society, on the absence of fathers. Yet we should stand up and take responsibility. Should we go back to being the men that we were, the men who were no nonsense? Because also those men are the same men who used to not listen to their wives, not take advice from women. So, do we go back or do we continue going forward?
Okay, I think I want to borrow what Chris said, that the principle should be kept, but the application would depend on the circumstances. I think it is important in principle for us to go back to what the original design was supposed to be. Yeah. Now, you said, you know, no-nonsense kind of thing. I don't think that really necessarily was good, and I don't think that that's what we mean when we say we go back to the principle. I think we go back to more the role and the attributes of fathers and of men That's more what it is really, as opposed to being authoritarian and all that. Because
I think it was a good thing.
in a way, but I think it's necessary to understand the principle, and once that is understood, then it's possible for us to actually, move forward without getting the negative impact or effects of what we see today in society. Right now in society, the man has taken a back role. The man has taken a kind of hands-off approach to things, and things are getting bad. Now, I need to say something very clearly here that, yes, today we have women who are presidents, who are CEOs, and so on and so forth, and that is great. But I want to say that there is something that is different in the home. Outside the home, yes, men and women should compete according to what their ability can let them compete. But in the home, there has to be certain defined roles and situations that need to play at home, where you should leave your CEO at the door, whether you're a man or woman. Yes.
How do you do
yes,
that?
leave your CEO at the door. Inside, you're a husband or a wife. Yes. If you bring your CEO or your presidency in the home, that's what we have the problem.
Do you
so that should
Are you
remain.
guys really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Colin. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Peter, I'm so excited to be here, but I'm more excited that they brought this man. It is true that roles are imagined. No, that roles are sort of evolving. That over 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years, that men served a certain purpose in society. But did you know that of all the men that have ever lived, up to 60% of them did not reproduce? Didn't. They served other functions in society. They served in armies. They served to develop innovations. I mean, the world's greatest men, Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, they didn't reproduce. They didn't have kids. And if you're to go by the Holy Book, of course, the main mind, JC also. But that's the thing. 60% of all men who have ever lived did not reproduce. And so they found a way of being meaningful and contributing to society. And now we find ourselves in a place that, as Stephen is saying, where things have changed. But the question that I want to ask is, you can't, so my point is, you can't go back. I don't think that there's a place for us to go back. What we can do is we can find a way of adapting to the new environment. Because you're never going to go back into the caveman space. We can't go back to a place where men are the only breadwinners. Women have been empowered so much that they will never go back to a place where they are fully submissive. There will be new ways to be submissive, but they will never.
I think that thing needs to be corrected, because first of all, yes, there are men who did not reproduce. Jesus didn't reproduce and all that. But the thing is that we are talking about the family here. We are talking about fatherhood. When you talk about fatherhood, then we are talking in the context of the family. And when we talk about the family, then clearly in a family there are roles. Because a family is like an engine, it's like a system, where every part has its function which it has to play. So if you say now that, okay, this piston can do what it wants and the other piston can do what it wants, obviously the engine will not function.
I mean,
the question was, have we reached a point where manhood should be redefined? And the reason why it needs to be redefined is because of these two individuals. These two individuals have come out strongly, and that traditional thinking that a man is a man, and that's the main problem we are having right now. Roles have changed, whether you like it or not. You cannot have a woman who's a CEO in the office, and when she comes home, you want her to be submissive.
You can. In 1996, let me say that.
Let me finish.
No, you can. In 1996,
let me finish.
Okay.
And the reason why men have failed to cope with this is because women have evolved. They have changed attitudes. Their reasoning has changed. Men are still traditional. A man is still thinking that he's still the head of the house. You're still the head of the house and you're not providing. The traditional thinking of a guy was, he was the provider. He was supposed to go and hunt. In the 21st century, women are doing it. So I think the definition of manhood should be
wait.
changed.
You see, I think you are mixing again the circumstance with the principle.
But the principle,
Allow me to
I know.
shed some light into your
Okay.
thinking.
Oh,
So
Boom.
the principle is that there's roles that both men and women play, because we are wired different.
Exactly.
Whether we go into the 22nd
Absolutely.
century or the 23rd or the 30th century, women will always desire affection from their husbands. Men would always desire respect from their wives. It's the way it is. So whether your wife is the CEO, the president, she lives on the moon and comes back on the weekend, it doesn't matter.
It was not there.
Listen. Whether she goes to the moon or comes back, she will still desire the affection of her husband.
Exactly.
And whether you are the houseboy, a wheelbarrow pusher, or the president, you desire a wife who respects you as a man. Principle, okay? The circumstances may change. That's okay. But the principle is the same.
I want to input here and just completely disagree with what Chris has said, because when we talk about the principle and the circumstances, we assume a slightly more ideal world. So, just to put this in context, the number of women-led households are on the rise. Neighboring Kenya has the highest number of single mothers in Africa. So that's...
And Uganda follows closely at 40%.
Yes.
And what's the reason?
Is that
Of
good?
course,
Yeah.
no.
Tell us why.
I cannot. Of course, there are factors. There are factors like war, factors like disease.
Yes.
No, factors like war, and so in Uganda, war in the middle of the 70s and 80s, and disease that killed off a lot of men, and so you end up with households that are run by women. But there is also the economic factor, the fact that men feel like because they are no longer in charge, they have, as Stephen has said, pulled out of that situation. What those factors then creates is a new reality where the old principle cannot work.
Colin,
And we...
the guys who pulled out, in many cases are pulled out because of, to a high degree, quite some irresponsibility.
Yes.
I just read a stat on, I think Google, says that Uganda is the drunkest country in the world.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Right?
Oh
We
my
are the
gosh.
drunkest country in the world.
Yes.
And whether you go in the villages now or in the cities, the people who drink the most are the men.
Yes.
Okay?
True.
Now you ask yourself,
Oh dear.
where has that come from?
Men.
When you grow up in families where young boys were allowed to test booze and finish, tip over the glass, like some of the families some of us grew up in, you are trained in taking alcohol pretty early.
Yes.
Stefan has told us here that the traditional man was a drinker from very early on. Booze is part of the society. But we are saying booze is part of the society, but other countries don't necessarily have a society like the one we're experiencing now. Where do we learn how to control drink? So that
home.
the alcohol does not drink you? It's at home. When you grow up seeing your father being drunk by the bottle, what are you saying? Because it's a monkey see, monkey do scenario.
No.
Right?
I
Really?
serious, because that's not taking responsibility. That's not taking
You
responsibility.
could call it escapist, but Peter, where did you learn hard work? Where did you learn ethics? Where did you learn to be a man of your word? If we play back all the shows from when NTV Men started, you'll keep on quoting your father.
Exactly.
Do you know why you quote your father that much? It's because he had an impact on you.
But
Yes.
Chris,
Now,
you
when
see,
the
it
man,
can be
when the
positive or
man,
negative.
when the
Yeah.
man pulls out, and he's not like your father was, then we have a problem.
Exactly, and that's what you are
But
saying.
Chris,
and that's
no,
exactly
so
what you're saying.
I want to come back and say there is a lot of men who are responsible now, who are raised by their mothers, who are raised to be responsible, who are raised to be hardworking. Because of the very absence of the fathers, they have become the men.
Let me tell you about those men, because I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm one of those men who didn't grow up with my father from when I was 10. And I can tell you that if I didn't have kind of like surrogate dads.
Exactly.
John Bunjo,
Absolutely.
for me it was guys in church. Apostle John Bunjo, Pastor Chris
Absolutely.
Komagum, Uncle Ben Mugara from Makere, men who just decided to be there. And there's actually another point I don't agree with you. To say that because 60% of the men did not reproduce, they got no effect. Most of the men you have said actually had an effect on society. And and if you say go to the Catholic Church right now, you'll find that there's lots of guys who are not married, men, who are actually influencing society for good.
Which is why I'm saying that when you keep hinging it on the family, you're not doing the topic.
Broaden your view.
Broaden
your view about fatherhood, because fatherhood is not about sperm.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Fatherhood
it's not just not about manhood.
But you know the question.
It's about
guys in the Guru Hotel talking about fatherhood. And if I may put Chris in verbatim, it's not about sperm. We'll be right back after the break.
what? What?
Welcome back from the break. In case you just joined
The
us,
question
we
is-
are here for a special Father's Day edition talking about the evolution of manhood. Now, I agree with you 100%. This gentleman seems a bit...
My question specifically to these two individuals. Do you think that manhood should be
Chris
have
and
names.
Steven.
Chris and Steven? Stop.
They're not at war.
Yeah.
Let the point stand.
Listen, do you think that manhood should be redefined?
What do you mean?
Because I'm failing to understand you, because things have changed. Over the years, things have changed. Roles have changed. Do you think that roles have changed?
Things can change, but
No. Let me ask you. Do you think that roles have changed?
Well-
Male and female roles have changed.
Well, they may change, as I said, circumstances may change.
Have they changed?
But the issue, let me ask you.
Because I don't understand
I
why
think-
these people
Don't cry.
I think what we need to say.
they are saying that principle that a guy is still supposed, for example, to be a lead in the house. How will you lead a
Yes.
house where you are the one who's not doing anything? You're the
Look,
one.
you can
There are other
lead.
ways of leading.
Let me say, look, I was going to say something that in 1986, I was in Britain. And that was the time.
You've been waiting
That was
for
the time
to say that.
when that was the time when Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister.
Yes.
She had just fought a war in Falklands and defeated.
Against
Yes.
Argentina.
Yes.
I had her on BBC saying, in the evenings, she goes and cooks for her husband with her own hands as the prime minister of a nation. Meaning that, yes, a woman can do anything outside the home, but in the home, she is to be led by her husband. Even if she earns more money, even if she has more influence in society, it doesn't matter. And that's why the system in the home, the principles that govern the home, have to be kept intact, irrespective of what is going on
However,
around
I
society.
just need a bit of clarity there. So are you then saying that it is fair for a woman to go to work the whole day, but she has to still come home, cook for her husband, put the kids to bed, because that's her role?
Not necessarily, because in a family and in a home, a leader does not mean that he doesn't do anything. A leader just means that he has responsibilities, and in fact, in any case, a leader, the kind of leader that we are describing, should be a servant leader, a man who leads by example.
By not
a man
doing
who
anything.
leads.
So he's at
No.
home.
A servant leader can do anything. I mean, I do things in my home. Sometimes I cook breakfast for my wife.
Yes.
Yes,
The-
as
the-
a man.
the operative
so
word in that
the
statement is
idea is,
sometimes.
but the thing is that I'm responsible.
Yes.
Yes, I'm responsible.
pushing for.
Exactly, I'm responsible.
I-
But I do things in the best way possible, because we are two lovers in the home. And in fact, I usually say that one of the biggest killers of marriages is this thing of I'm the husband and you are the wife and you are supposed to do this and you are supposed to do the other. I say that actually, as a husband and wife, you're supposed to be two lovers in a home.
I agree with you 100%.
two
But
levels, yeah.
can I just throw something there? We've talked about fatherhood, and Chris categorically say it's not just about sowing a seed. Now, traditionally,
It was about sowing your seed.
no.
No.
It was clearly said that it takes a village to raise a child.
That's right.
But now we're becoming more and more individualistic, all right? Now, you've talked about like the Catholic fathers. Okay, they mentor a lot of people. I mean, the guys from church, other people who are doing that, who play a fatherly role. Okay, and yet they're not necessarily the father of the children. So my question is, we are saying we should not go back to that, but isn't that what we need to go back to?
So I want to say, I want to just sort of take that head on and say that if you take away the sperm part of the man, there's very few other jobs, roles, and abilities that men have displayed the ability to do.
No.
That cannot be. There are very few.
You didn't say
You talk about, you talk about evangelism, there are women evangelists. They talk about the church, they're there. You talk about politics, they're there. You talk about war, they're there. You talk about science, you talk about innovation.
So are you reducing a man to
I'm
a
not.
sperm bank?
No. So there is the things that you feel, and then there's the reality of the world in which we
I
are.
asked you a question.
So I'm coming. I'm just going to tie up the point. So if you agree on that, then you say. So really, men are not that exclusive, because most of the things they can do,
women can do.
the other gender can do as well. So we come back to the point, and this is how we create differentiation and distinction. So we say, what is it they can do really well?
Which is one thing.
Yes, which is now you go back to, now when you go back, you go back to things like protection, you don't go back to things like leadership, things like provision. But you have to update those values for the 21st century. What does it mean for a 21st century protector or provider? It doesn't mean being the breadwinner. It means providing the vision for the family.
Being a
It
good
means
man.
updating the household and taking us into
Same
the
page.
next.
We now on the same
That's not what you are saying.
Let me see.
I think you're on the same page. Principles.
Yeah.
Circumstances change. Caveman to today.
Exactly.
It's not the same.
principle. Yeah.
Welcome, Colin. We're glad to have you back.
No.
Dear viewers, as you can see today,
I'm saying
Yes, I'll tell you what. What Colin has said does bear a lot of truth in it. However, there are roles that are clearly defined. And I believe one of our challenges in society today is there's no clear definition of roles. So a lot of men are able to get away with stuff in the name of empowering their women. So it's not clearly, before the roles were clearly set. Men, there are certain things you've said it, okay? Men were protectors, they were providers, and all. And those are the men who we grew up seeing. But now we have taken on a new culture in the name of what you call of evolution, and we're shedding these things, and we're calling ourselves modern.
It actually it's not evolution. It's actually, I think that the bigger problem that we have as a country has been
Every woman wants to
has been
yes.
Absolutely.
You shut up.
Peter,
You don't know what
Peter,
a
yes,
woman
that-
wants.
Oh yeah.
Who told you to sleep with all of them?
No, it's the truth.
Do you want a tough man?
Peter, we're on the show.
You don't like a tough man?
Hey, who is Ross?
So
We can't see her.
let's just think. Do you want? Come on, just talk to us. Wouldn't, from a lady's perspective, do you want a tough man, or do you want a sissy?
For a reason.
For a reason.
Yeah, tough for a reason. What do you mean tough?
Just being tough there for that's what he's asking.
No.
I mean, a guy who is
She said
solid.
no.
A man who is a man.
Yes, a real
Man who
man.
is a man.
Like, what's a real
Yes.
man?
Yeah.
That's a real, you guys, let me just
Thank you, Ross.
You
Yeah.
just made me
Thank you.
lose what I am.
The chain of thought.
My chain of thought.
I want
because Peter brought it was at the beginning. So what's this real man thing about?
It's a
So
drink.
what's real?
I want to say that the idea of the tough man, it's gone, which is why popular entertainment moved away from the muscled,
From the aggressive
Rambos
guy,
and
you know.
the Schwarzeneggers to lean. Wait, because the power is not on the outside; it's now on the inside. Women want smart. They want smarter men. They want men who are innovative.
They
men,
want sensitive
yes,
guys.
Sensitive guys.
Let me
The guys you're talking about, the guys
Peter.
Chris and Stefan are talking and Stephen are talking about, those guys were not loving people. They were not sensitive people. They were not people who would give affection.
They grew beards.
The problem you have, the problem we're having is our definition of a real man being probably all muscles and stuff. And I don't think that until now I had the word muscles come out of my mouth. We have not defined man that way. Because listen, I think that for the reason why there is a species that looks like me and it's Homo sapien and I'm this small is we were able to, if evolution is real, we survived it, okay? Because there's people like me, then there's giants like Peter and big bellies like his and all this stuff. Okay, the point I was making, the point I was actually making is that in this particular country, our biggest challenge is that we have had 30 straight years of the girl-child empowerment. Non-stop
billions of dollars.
And 30 straight years of nothing happening with the boy child. The girl child still has the traditional help she was getting from the senga and the moms. This is what you should do when you grow up. On top of that, there's the 1.5 points in university. On top of that, so there's all these things. And
she has a comparative advantage.
And there are all these jobs they say. And there are all these jobs they say that women preferable.
Okay.
All right. So what that has done generally to the boy child is to grow up thinking that they are flat-footed. Not that they are, but it matters what you think. Perception is reality.
Because everything around them says that.
So in this country, I think the thing that needs to be corrected right now is to start telling the boy child that he is important.
Exactly.
That his role in society matters. Because we have for 30 years invariably said that boy child doesn't matter.
But Chris, doesn't that paint the picture that girls are weak? Not the other way around?
No! That's what, you see, I was around in 1986. I was old enough to see the
you're not in the UK.
No, I'm real. I wasn't in the UK, I was here and I was a young boy. But I was old enough to understand what was going on. What was communicated then is that the girls are disadvantaged, we need to help them out. That's what was communicated then. 30 years on, I don't think the girls are disadvantaged.
Right.
Like for real.
I would like.
So, and that's why these guys are saying the girls are ruling in their homes.
No, I'm not saying no. This is what I'm saying. Let me say this.
I wanted Stephen to talk about that pendulum.
You see, before 30 years ago and all that, it is true that women were disadvantaged, the girls were disadvantaged. So it is like a pendulum which was there, and indeed we agree culturally and all that agree. So what should have happened is we should have corrected the pendulum and fixed the situation. But what has happened now is that the pendulum has swung to the other side. Yes. Where the girl is now more advantaged and the boy is disadvantaged. And this needs to be corrected. We need to go back to the center where both.
And that's where you come to my side. And that's why I say that, things have evolved, roles have evolved. Men need to catch up. Women have had a platform where they were supported for the longest time. Men still have those traditional thinking that I'm a guy. I can still have my roles. You have your roles in the home. Listen, let me finish.
We never interfere.
The reason why we're having problems is this.
This is going to be your last show now. Because you're just behaving like a wild animal.
No! Because you don't understand why this...
Maybe at the Guru Skies Hotel talking about the evolution of man. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break of this special Father's Day NBC. Welcome back from the break. In case you just joined us, as I always say, we want to hear from you. This is the third and final segment, so you've missed quite a bit, especially because we are talking about the evolution of manhood. Now, you see, I have a problem with this thing of saying that boys are disadvantaged, and I'll tell you why. there are issues, okay, but we cannot forget that the girl child is coming on the back foot. As I mentioned, it's easy to sit here in an urban area and then say, oh, you know what, boys in urban areas, fair enough. But what about the girls in the rural areas?
You know, Peter, I've had that statement ever since I was a child. Girls are disadvantaged. How old am I?
Even in the rural areas, that's what I'm saying.
For the longest time,
Peter, let me take you to the rural areas. You want us to go rural? Let's go rural. Okay.
Beat you with experience.
No, serious. So here's the thing. What happens in the rural areas is both the boy child and the girl child have got to walk these long distances to go to school.
School, firewood.
Both the boy child and the girl child have got to go to fetch water.
Yes.
It's not gender sensitive.
But the girl child cooks.
Wait.
The boy child doesn't.
The boy child, no, listen, things have changed, my man.
The boy
While the girl child may be cooking, the boy child has got to go and look after the goats, go fetch the cows,
firewood,
God knows whatever else. So kids work hard in the rural areas. Where's the differentiating point in rural areas? Where the disadvantage may be for the girl child is when she gets into her menstrual cycle and there are no separated toilets at school. So you find that the girl child drops out quickly then. But on the other hand, you also find that the boy child quickly has got to start to earn a living because his dad is drinking himself stupid. And he's got to support the home. So who's going to look after the cows and the goats and all this stuff? The boy child. So the boy child also drops out of school. Okay?
Sometimes to take care of his younger sister.
Yes, and the other thing that's going on, just if you just go and look at those rural growth centers and what's going on, there's a lot of sports betting now.
Yeah.
Okay? So what's going on is that the boy child earns his little money and he's betting and he's gambling. Okay? And just that wave is hitting the boy child. Then there is the alcohol, which he has to start early, modeled after his father. So I do not see advantage in rural area. Do you know what I'm seeing? Do you know what I'm seeing?
Yes.
I'm seeing us damned in the rural, and we just, Colin and I have worked on on some projects together, and even though we may not agree on many things in life, Colin and I will agree on this. We need a new strategy for our rural. It's bad. Across
both for boys and for girls.
Boys and girls.
I agree. Can I just say something? Now, you've picked up on something very interesting. And there was, there actually, it still is, it's used as a case study. Just next door here in Kenya, there are twins. I was going to say two twins, but they can't be four.
Yeah.
They are twins who grew up in one of the slums in Nairobi. Their father was a perpetual drunkard who used to beat their mother, just drink himself silly into the ground. If there was no money at home, there would be chaos. And their mom used to sell vegetables and do odd jobs, you know, work as a maid and all that stuff to take the kids through school. Now, these guys currently are about to hit 40, okay? One of them is a perpetual drunkard, just like his father. And he attributes that to his father. The other is an extremely successful businessman. He also attributes his success to his father. Because, just hold on, because the drunkard says that's all he grew up seeing. The other guy says that's also all he grew up seeing, and that was his motivation, to ensure he doesn't go there. So can we stop using excuses and blaming our fathers?
Just there you're comparing apples and oranges.
No, it's
right
apples,
there.
apples.
Can I show
Same
you how?
house.
Can I show you how?
Yeah.
This is what has just happened. You're painting a scenario of two boys who've grown up in the same environment and have come out differently. And it's true that when life serves you lemons, you can decide to make lemonade, or you can, decide to throw it away and say it's bitter. You're going to either be bitter or better. Okay? Those are the two choices we have. Same scenario.
Exactly.
That's very different from a scenario where if you're comparing a guy who had a present father who is guiding him, disciplining him, right, showing him how to be a man, and a guy who has no one to guide him. Those two guys are turning out different.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally different.
Why do you feel that?
And that's, for me, this whole discussion makes me think that, or realize that what we need to do is actually to fix manhood, or put things back where they should be. Because the way we are going now, we are heading for catastrophe as a nation and as a society. And mainly because manhood has been misunderstood, and fathers have shied away from their responsibility. And that's why actually I'm a very, very strong supporter of actually us putting things back to where they should be so that society can move.
But now you talked about fathers shying away from their responsibility. Doesn't it go then back to what Stefan is saying?
You know, and I love what he said, fixing. You cannot fix manhood.
You can fix it.
What needs to be done is that men need to grow up. Men need to be brave and accept that women have reached a level that have been empowered. You know, that girl child has been patted for the longest time. You've been patting this girl and empowering him. Do you know right now we have, okay, as in when you look at the statistics, we have more men in the CEO positions, but the middle management has more women. And you know, when you go back to the traditional roles that, you know, are stipulated in the Bible, in you know, our societies, you know, men are supposed to be providers. And this is what I'm getting from these two people. They're still thinking that you can fix men. Men need to just evolve. You need to catch up. So
no, but you see, if you, I think I need to say something here. If we continue with that system, we are going to break society. And that's where we are right now. That if we continue business as usual with men disempowered, with men not playing their role, their God-given role as they should play, then we are ending up with what we are.
What is the God-given role?
The God-given role is a man is a leader, and a man
is a provider.
Okay, all that.
The God-given role is the man is a provider, right?
Look. The provision. Look, let's not dwell on the provision. Yeah, let's not dwell on the provision.
I want to say something after.
Yeah. Let's not dwell on the provision. A man can work and a woman can work, and they can work together because they are one anyway. For those of us, wait a minute, for those of us who have been married, you know, you hear. Yes. Yes. In front, as we swear, all that I have, I give to you. The other person, all that they have, they give to you. So we are one. So it doesn't matter who makes the money. We are one.
We are
one.
I want to say something before we get into the particulars. I want to say we're never going to go back to where it was. Well, the reality is that because women have the power, they're not going to relinquish it.
Well, we'll pay the consequences. We'll pay the consequences.
If you think I'm lying, you ask the people who gave the power in 1986.
We'll pay the consequences.
That's one. They are not going to relinquish it. So we're not going to take it back by force. It must be a negotiation. And the negotiation is not going to be based on men's weakness or men's disadvantage. You can't say, you guys, you know, over 30 years we put hundreds of millions of dollars into empowering you, so now you guys give us a little something. No. The conversation has to come back. The negotiation is about, a society is better if you empower both women and men. I think that's how that conversation is going to happen. Two, we cannot fix it because the world in which those problems were made is not the world in which we're trying to fix them. A lot of time has passed. You're now looking at places in the world where people are talking about they want transgender toilets. You have lesbians. You have all sorts of, you know, the job applications now don't even ask you about how you identify yourself as a gender. They just say, how do you identify yourself? Male, female, lesbian.
But you see, those societies are crumbling. Those societies are crumbling. And that's why, as long as we continue with that,
we cannot stop that advance.
As long as we continue with that.
So the approach, my suggested approach, is...
That sounds like a parting shot.
No.
I think as long, you see, that's why as long as we continue, you see, if a car was designed to use diesel, you can't now say, oh well, you know, we can. It is a diesel thing until you go back to what it was created to be.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, I agree a lot with what Colin has just said. Times have changed. As human beings, we are still human beings. I honestly don't think we have evolved. I think that our environment has changed. But we are still, you mentioned it, Chris.
That we are wired the same way.
We're wired the same. Exactly. Every woman, doesn't matter whether she's a president or she's
wired as
else.
A woman.
She's still a woman, and she has needs as a woman. Same thing to a man. Doesn't matter who you are, you have your needs as a man. However, could it be just that we've got a system that is failing? Because as I mentioned it earlier, and you guys started throwing stones at me, I mean, it does take a village to raise a child, and everybody has a role to play.
Why are you like this?
I don't mean a literal village.
Okay,
Okay, yes, you see. Are you playing a role in your nephews' lives? Okay. Are you playing a role in your friends' children's lives?
But that's
I
what
want you to
middle
tell me
friends
that in your parting shot. Because this is a special Father's Day episode, and this is also a very interesting weekend that's coming up because it's also Eid.
Okay, let me
the World
start
Cup
with your
is
question.
kicking off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me
We are away
let
from
me-
home the next 4 months.
By the way, I'm supporting Nigeria. So I'll start with your
4 weeks.
I'll start with your
Not 4 months.
your question about if I'm playing a role, and I think that is the one problem that men are facing right now: role models. You know, and that's why I think there's a big confusion, and I feel like, you know, manhood should be redefined. We have, you know, Bruce Jenner as, you know, models for for young kids now. So I think and I believe that roles have evolved. You know, we still don't have traditional roles of women, of female and male have evolved. And I feel that women have evolved with it. You know, they have changed attitudes, but men, on the other hand, still have those traditional roles. So I feel like, you know, if we don't adapt to this, you know, we still have problems.
All right. Chris, your parting shot as we go
disagree with Stefan.
into Father's Day.
I disagree with Stefan. I don't think that the roles of man and woman, at least in the home, have changed. Fathers need to still be fathers. Husbands need to be husbands. Mothers need to be mothers, and wives need to be wives in the home. The thing that has changed is the circumstance within which we are operating. Okay? What has changed is that we are coming from a single source income
Yes.
home to a dual source income home. What has changed is men can no longer abuse power by using money as a tool of control. There is more negotiation now because the women also have the money. And in fact, what's happened in our society now is that what's happening in our society now is that we now as men need to be better leaders than we were before, because some of the cheap rudimentary tools of control have been demystified. Like the money thing, it's been demystified. So you need to lead better. So you're going to find that you need more servant leadership. You need to be humbler. You need to be a loving husband so that you love her into submission. Okay? Because I can tell you,
love her into submission.
parting shot, sir. Because I can tell you, a loved woman submits easily. She has no problem.
Completely.
Okay? So, the roles haven't changed. The circumstances have changed, have evolved. And so we actually need to be leading better. If you go with the evolution theory, what it says is that the weak species were, you know, they were killed. They didn't survive.
Exactly.
In our time, the men who are really going to survive are the better leaders. And this is what this whole thing is about.
All right, great stuff. Stephen, your parting shot.
Yes, I think that fatherhood should be taken very seriously, and I want to encourage men, fellow men out there, to go back to your responsibility as a man, as a leader, a real, true leader, servant leader, leading by example, leading in character, because manhood is not so much the physique and all this, but more in character, how a man can handle difficult circumstances and stick with it despite the odds. So I'm encouraging men, especially during this Father's Day week, to rise up to the occasion. And I want to encourage wives, children, supporters to really encourage the men. You know, let's not blame them. You know, let's just encourage them to rise up to the occasion, because as they rise to the occasion, the whole society will be better. And I feel that if the men don't take up their role, families are going to crumble, and when families crumble, the society crumbles, because the saying is true that as goes the family, so goes the nation.
Great stuff. Colin, your parting shot.
Many years ago, I dated someone who said to me that when you speak to the donkey in a man, the ass in him answers back. And when you speak to the lion in a man, the king in him answers back.
Very powerful.
I think that you must speak to the ability to lead. I don't think that there is a space. There's a space for emotion and inspiration, but there is no space to speak to weakness and the disadvantage that men are facing. Because this is what will happen. They will take advantage of that and start pitting themselves instead of rising up to this challenge, this gargantuan mountain that we've said. I think that it is important that we speak to the values that men are supposed to play in society. Speak back to provision, speak back to leadership, speak back to protection, and update those values. Make them relevant. And in so doing, sort of inspire a new way. Because, and I know that there's a lot of, when you talk about this, the feminists out there end up saying, you know, that's all toxic masculinity, and men, you know, men are taught not to show emotion, and all this, you know, all these other constructs. But I believe that there is a space in today's world for men to be conscientious, to be vulnerable and friendly, to have meaningful relationships, but above all, to live a fuller life with understanding partners. So I don't necessarily think that the answer is to say to men, you must go back and lead your homes. But I think that there's a conversation to be had around, we're doing life together as partners. How do I make sure you achieve the best of your life as my wife? And for women to say back to men, how can I help you be the best as my husband? I think that that's the conversation, because I think that this is a negotiation. Because the women who are kidnapping themselves today for ransom from their husbands are not going to willingly give back this newly acquired power they've gotten.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Calm down. Now, well, you've heard it from the men here at the Naguru Skies Hotel. Mine is just very simple. I believe men have to be strong. And strong is not about being muscular and all that. Men have to handle their business. It's as simple as that. And for the fathers out there, you don't have to sire a child to be a father. A father is the person who raises a child. So anybody who you influence them positively. And that's what Father's Day is about. Have a good night, God bless, and we will see you next week, especially after, it's busy. We've got Father's Day, we've got Eid, and the World Cup. Have a good night, and God bless.